Alrighty, so it's time to do the preview of match week number 16, and we're going to do the first part where we're going to look at the Friday and Saturday game that's going to happen. And yes, that's right, we do have a Friday game this week. I think this is the first time this season that we have a Friday game. I mean, do you guys remember when Friday game seems to be a regular thing in MLS, and it feels like every single week we do have a Friday game, and it's kind of such a shame, the fact that it has gone away recently, especially in these last couple of seasons, where it feels like Friday game is getting more rare than ever, and all the games usually happen on Saturday and Sunday, and then also you get the midweek games that happen on Tuesday and Wednesday. And one more thing to note is that there was supposed to be 14 games that's going to happen, which is a full slate of action, but one of them of course got postponed, and that one game had to be the one that I'm looking forward to the most, which is the Cali Clasico between the Galaxy and the Quakes, where that game was postponed because apparently I think there was like a wildfire around the Stanford area, and the power basically had the Stanford area had a power outage, and they couldn't really get the stadium lights working. And knowing the fact that that game is taking place at nighttime, yeah, you do need lights to basically play that game. So yeah, such a shame that of course is the case, and I believe that game is being rescheduled all the way to September 24th, which is a long time from now. But you know, that doesn't stop me in terms of wearing a Quakes jersey, because hey, you know, I know some that have watched these preview and have always mentioned the fact that maybe I'm kind of being a jinx to a team. Well, I can't really be a jinx to any of these teams when I'm wearing a jersey of a team that isn't even playing this match week, that is match week number 16. But let us actually begin by talking about the first game, which is FC Cincinnati versus Orlando City, which again, this game is going to happen in just a bit, as this one will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. Cincinnati have a 6-2-7 record, while Orlando has a 7-4-5 record. All-time meeting, Orlando leads the series with 3 wins, 2 draw, and 1 losses, but that 1 loss happened in the last game when FC Cincinnati got their first ever win against Orlando City in the first meeting. Last 5 games for both of these teams. For Cincinnati, they drew 1-1 against the Union before losing 4-3 to Montreal, then losing 2-3 at home against New England, then lost they won 2-1 against Chicago, and then they won 1-0 against Minnesota, and that was during the part of the stretch where they went on a record high 4-game winning streak, which is the longest in their franchise history, and no doubt that was probably the best stretch that this franchise has had ever since they came into the league a couple of years ago. But you know, they've started to kind of came back down from cloud 9, and you know, have only got a point out of their last 3 games. Well, for Orlando City, I mean, I mentioned before how much they have been very inconsistent, and they have shown in the last 5 games. You know, they won 2-1 against Houston, but then drew 1-1 against New England, then lost 3-1 at home against Dallas, then drew 2-2 against Austin on the road, and then won 1-0 on the road against Toronto FC. So if this pattern, of course, continued, that means that most likely they're going to get a draw in this game against FC Cincinnati. I mean, I swear, if they do get a draw in this game, this just proves that this pattern of them getting win, draw, loss, win, draw, and loss is actually a real thing. And it's kind of impressive that Orlando City can continue that pattern too, because normally when I mention these patterns, I kind of jokingly said aside, but you know, that's where Orlando City is this season. It's just been a very inconsistent season for them, and you know, it feels like if the pattern continues, that means they're probably going to be due for a loss or draw because they won their last game, which I'm pretty sure FC Cincinnati fans wouldn't mind, and especially them trying to get another 3 points against Orlando City like they did earlier this season. Now, moving on in terms of the next game, and now talking about the Saturday game, which again, originally there was going to be 10 Saturday game that was going to happen, but now it's down to just 9, and the first of the 9 is the Seattle Sounders versus Sporting KC, and this is the second week in a row where Seattle is played in a lunchtime kickoff of 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 12:08 p.m. local time, and this game of course is going to be on ABC, which is, again, I think this is the second consecutive week that the Sounders are on ABC, and that so it feels like whenever the Sounders play against Sporting KC, you know that this game is going to be on national television, even though when you look at each of these teams are in the standings, it's not really like in the top spot. And this is also where the criticism began with these national televised games, where it feels like there are some some teams that not only get more national televised game, but also a lot of these national televised game happen in the West Coast. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, some of these national televised game and some of these network that broadcast these games, not only they want to show some of these teams that are more superior, but also in terms of market and also the attendance itself. I mean, I'm pretty sure even when you get a good matchup like what we see in the Eastern Conference, if you don't bring in the crowd, yeah, I'm pretty sure ABC, ESPN, or even Fox will not actually broadcast those games. Now, obviously, that's going to be different next year because of the whole Apple TV deal. But yeah, as of now, it seems like we've seen so many times this season where the games are taking place in the West Coast, and that I think this is the fifth Sounders game that is on national television in this season, and I think they have a couple more, including the two Cascadia derby against the Timbers that's going to be on national television. But going back to this matchup, Sporting KC have a 4-4-9 record, while Seattle have a 6-2-6 record. Seattle does slightly leads the all-time meeting 11-4-10. And in terms of the last 5 games for the Sounders, they drew 1-1 against LAFC, and then won 4-0 against Vancouver, won 2-1 against Charlotte. They did lose 1-0 on the road against Colorado, but they did win 1-0 on the road against the Houston Dynamo. Now, for Sporting KC, they pull off one of the bigger upset of the season by knocking off Nashville 2-1 in that one. But before that, they lost 2-1 at home against Sporting KC, lost 1-0 at home against Vancouver, drew 1-1 against the Quakes, and then won 2-1 against the Colorado Rapids. And also, keep in mind, they are also coming off of a U.S. Open Cup win against Union Omaha. And, I know I haven't mentioned a lot about the U.S. Open Cup, which, we once again saw some upset in the quarterfinal, with Sacramento moving on into the semifinal and becoming the first USL team and the first non-MLS team to make it that far into the U.S. Open Cup since FC Cincinnati did back in 2017, when Cincinnati was still in the USL Championship. But certainly congratulate them in terms of reaching that mark, and I know that they are going to be playing at home against Sporting KC later on, and that's going to be a game that I think I'm about to going to get my tickets after I finish recording this video, because I think that game is going to be taking place in Sacramento. But, Sporting KC did play against the ultimate Cinderella story of the U.S. Open Cup in Union Omaha, where they were able to win 6-0. But the last time that Sporting KC were able to win a U.S. Open Cup game and put a lot of energy into that, the very next game, they lost 7-2 against the Portland Timbers. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be the same result in this one. I'm not saying that the Sounders are going to absolutely blow Sporting KC out the door, because I think for Sporting KC, as much as I've said before, they're really focused on the U.S. Open Cup this season, because it feels like it's kind of the only thing that can salvage of what seems like it's already kind of a lost season for them. Though, that win against Nashville maybe give them some slight hope. But again, this is a game that I think the Sounders are going to be favorites, and you expect the Sounders should be able to get a win in this one, especially if them continue this resurgence that they're currently on. Now, moving on, in the next match, we got DC United versus Nashville SC, which will start at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 5:08 p.m. local time. And I forgot to mention, this game is also on national television, and it's going to be on ESPN. And again, one of those rare matchup that is going to be, one of the rare times that you see some of these Eastern Conference matchup on national television. I'm not saying that we haven't seen Eastern Conference matchup on national television, but it's been a while since we have seen one at Audi Field, and this, of course, will be one where, coming into this one, DC does have a 4-2-8 record, while Nashville has a 6-5-5 record, and it's kind of a matchup between two teams that, again, it's kind of weird that this is on national television, consider neither of these teams has been really in some good form lately, and that goes the same for DC, where they're actually on a winless run right now. They lost 1-0 against Chicago in the last game, lost 4-1 against the Red Bulls, drew 2-2 against Toronto. They lost 2-0 at home against NYCFC, and then drew 2-2 against Inter Miami. By the way, all-time meeting so far, Nashville has owned the series with 2 wins and 1 draw over DC, and in the free meeting, they have not lost to DC United so far. While for Nashville, they lost their first home game in the past 25 home game after losing to Sporting KC 2-1. Then they got a 0-0 draw against the Quakes. They won 3-1 against Colorado, drew 2-2 against Atlanta United, and then won 2-1 against Montreal. And it's safe to say that, Nashville this season, it feels like they're more comfortable being on the road, and especially with the style that they play, it's much more adaptive on the road compared to what they're at home. And I think that maybe is the reason why they have been struggling at home. I mean, it's not also just because of the fact that they're playing at a brand new stadium, and even though I know teams would love to play in their brand new stadium, it takes time to get that feeling that they are actually really playing in their home ground. Though again, when you look at the style that Gary Smith team plays, it fits very well for a team that goes on the road, which is why they have a decent record on the road, but also have a bad record at home. But unfortunately, as I said before, they have a lot of home games in the backlog of the schedule. This is only one of the few road games that they have remaining, and yeah, that's going to be something that they're going to have to figure out in the future. But at least in this game, I think they're going to be favorites with the way that they play, and that they could definitely have a chance to get all 3 points in this one against DC United. But now moving on, we got Montreal versus Charlotte FC, as Montreal has a 7-2-6 record, while Charlotte have a 6-2-8 record. This game will be the first of two games that kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, or actually starts at that time, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. There's only one prior meeting between both of these teams, and Montreal got the first ever meeting between both of these teams by winning 2-0 against Charlotte FC the last time that both of these teams played. In fact, the last time both of these teams played was at Bank of America Stadium, and that was one of the rare times that Charlotte actually lost at home. Consider so far this season they have been established their home and Bank of America Stadium to be an absolute fortress. But unfortunately, this game is not at Bank of America Stadium. This game is on the road, and that's where Charlotte has really struggled this season. In fact, when you look at the last 5 games, they only got their second point on the road in their franchise history after drawing 1-1 against Columbus. They did win 2-0 at home against the Red Bulls, but then lost 2-1 on the road against Seattle. Won 2-1 at home against Vancouver, and then lost 2-0 against Montreal, one of the rare home loss that they suffer. For Montreal, they did lose 1-0 against Austin, and then won 4-3 against FC Cincinnati, but then they did lose 2-1 at home against Montreal, lost 2-1 on the road against Nashville, and then won 2-0 against Charlotte FC. And that Montreal has definitely cooled off significantly after they went on a franchise record 8-game unbeaten that got them all the way at the top of the Eastern Conference, and now they have kind of fall back all the way to the 5th position in the East. But there's no doubt that this is a big game for both of these teams, especially for Charlotte. If they want to continue to stay above the red line, they need to get a result in this one, and especially they need to start getting more road points, or even a road win too, because as long as if this team isn't going to get road wins, this team maybe start to fall off a little bit. And that, for Montreal, they also will want to get home wins too, because home form has not been good for Montreal this season. Like this season, they have dropped a lot of home points, especially including the last game where they lost 1-0 to Austin, dropped all 3 points, and they were a man up for that game nevertheless. So we'll see whether they can bounce back in this game against a team that's still searching for their first ever road win in franchise history. But moving on, we got Toronto taking on Atlanta United, and by the way, both of these teams actually met each other, or actually not both of these teams, but both Toronto and Montreal meet each other in the Canadian Championship, which Toronto was able to move on into the finals. So it's also going to be interesting to see whether fatigue could be an issue for both of these teams. But coming into this game, they're playing against Atlanta United, who has a 5-4-5 record, while TFC have a 4-3-8 record. This game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. TFC have a slight edge with an all-time record of 4-4-3. And by the way, remember when this matchup used to be a very, very marquee matchup a couple of years ago? Yeah, it hasn't been the case. It feels like both of these teams have kind of took a big fall from grace with the way that both of these teams a couple of years ago was considered the cream of the Eastern Conference, and that they were always there to battle for those top spot in the Eastern Conference. Now, in the last 5 games for TFC, they lost 2-0 on the road against the Red Bulls. They did finally get their first win in the past 7 games by winning 3-2 against Chicago, but before that, it was a 2-2 draw between them and DC United lost 1-0 against Orlando City, and then lost 1-0 to the Vancouver Whitecaps on the road. For Atlanta, they got a much-needed 2-0 victory against Inter Miami before they lost one of the rare time at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and it, of course, has to be their nemesis in terms of playing at home for these past couple of years in the Columbus Crew. Then they drew 2-2 against Nashville, and then drew 2-2 again at home against New England, and then they won 4-1 against the Chicago Fire. So, this is a matchup that I'm pretty sure Atlanta is going to be the favorites, and especially with them started to trying to get themselves back above the red line, knowing they have some of their players back healthy, with Joseph Martinez being back healthy, and also some reinforcement that they've just signed in this past week. They're definitely destined to look to try to get all 3 points against a struggling TFC team this season, and a team that, if we thought that that 3-2 win against Chicago was a beginning of them turning around after the slow start, no. That game against the Red Bulls, they feel like they're back to being a team that is probably not going to be competing a lot this season, and that would definitely consider a huge failure for TFC fans, knowing that this was supposed to be the year where they fix everything and move past from a terrible season that they had last season, and they spent money to try to address that, and for the most part, at least they kind of addressed the attack a little bit. Well, they continued to develop a decent attack, but also the fact that they didn't do anything with their defense, although I've heard that they are going to get Domenico Cristo soon, and that he's definitely going to be one of the reinforcements that they desperately needed in terms of that very weak back line that this team has. But now moving on, we got the Houston Dynamo versus the Chicago Fire. So, I mentioned before that game between the Quakes and the Galaxy is going to be postponed to a later date. And in some way, maybe it's a blessing in disguise that game got delayed to another day. Well, not for me, because I was very, very looking forward to attend the game, and now it seems like I won't be able to attend until September. But one of the things that was a blessing in disguise is that game was going to be on Twitter, and it feels like we're going to once again have a week where we're going to have 2 Twitter games that's going to be happening, but this is even worse. It's like back to back, but this week it's not going to happen because of that Cali Classico being postponed, and now the only Twitter game is the match between the Houston Dynamo versus the Chicago Fire. The Fire have a 3-5-7 record, while the Dynamo has a 5-3-7 record, as this game will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:08 p.m. local time. I mean, it feels like TUDN and Twitter started to broadcast some of these games later into the night than usual, because a lot of these games usually happen in the afternoon, and it usually happen around that prime slot of 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, but that just have not been the case, at least recently. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, it's an 11-8-8 advantage for the Dynamo over the Fire. And for the Dynamo, they did lose 2-1 on the road against Orlando City, though I didn't think they played badly in that one, and they probably were a little bit unlucky to not get a result out of that one. Though that being said, they were well beaten on the road against RSL, losing 3-0. They did win 3-0 on the road against their favorite team to play on the road, that is the LA Galaxy. Though they did lose 1-0 against the Sounders. Actually, that should be red there, because I put red mark in terms of teams that lost, but they did win 2-0 against Nashville SC. Now for the Fire, they finally getting their first win after going 10 games without a win by winning 1-0 against DC. Before that, they did lose 3-2 against Toronto on the road, lost 1-0 on the road against NYCFC, drew 3-3 against the New York Red Bulls, and then lost 2-1 at home against FC Cincinnati. And we'll see whether that win that they had against DC United maybe can boost their confidence that they can get themselves back into a good form, because as I mentioned before in that video, talk about how the East is wide open. It is. I mean, when you look at it, there is a lot of teams that is kind of jogging position to potentially not only make it to the playoffs, but also finish at the top of the Eastern Conference. And for the Fire case, even though they're still at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, only 6 points back in terms of the playoff line, and they do have a game in hand over the team that is currently owns the last spot, that is Charlotte FC. So theoretically, if they can win that game in hand, they would be 3 points back. And when you're 3 points back below the red line, you are definitely in this. It's definitely not over yet this season. So yeah, for the Fire, if they can get on a good good run, they can definitely get themselves back into the playoff race. But the question is, can they get on a good run? And especially them going to Houston, a place that a lot of teams have struggled this season, especially playing in that hot, humid weather. I mean, this game is a night game, but it's still during most part of this game that it's going to be playing in the daytime. Yeah, it's not going to be easy for the Fire to get all 3 points against a Houston Dynamo team that have done relatively well this season at home at PNC Field. But that being said, I am now going to switch board and look at the last 4 games that's going to be happening in terms of the Friday and Saturday night action. So the next game, we're going to look at Inter Miami taking on Minnesota United, which will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:08 p.m. local time. By the way, these next 3 games is going to be kicking off at the same time in terms of the local time, but it's just that each of these 3 games are taking place in 3 different time zone, and this one is taking place in Eastern time zone, this one in Central time zone, and then the other one between RSL versus Columbus is taking place in Mountain time zone. And I kind of also wish that this game between the Timbers and Colorado would also take place at 8:08 p.m., even though I probably won't be happy with that because I never like these kind of late West Coast game, especially now that I'm working very early in the morning. But we start off with this game between Inter Miami versus Minnesota. So at least the good news is I do still get a chance to watch my team play, despite the Quakes are not playing this week. Though, yeah, unfortunately the team that I get to watch is a team that is not doing very well this season. That is Minnesota. Well, to be fair, the Quakes are also not doing very well, but Minnesota has been once again a team that has underachieved, and probably even underachieved more than they did last season with a 5-3-7 record. Meanwhile, for Inter Miami, they kind of are overachieving a little bit despite the 5-3-7 record, which is not really a good record, but consider this team was supposed to be targeted to finish bottom of the Eastern Conference, and that a couple of months ago when they were sitting bottom of the Eastern Conference, you know, I think they'll definitely take it, the fact that they got themselves in a good position to at least make it to the playoffs. But this is the first ever meeting between both of these teams, and in terms of the last 5 games, you know, they did lose 2-0 to Atlanta United in the last game before winning 2-1 on the road against the Timbers, won 2-0 against the Red Bulls, and then they got a 0-0 draw against the Union on the road, and then got a 2-2 draw against DC United. For Minnesota, they lost 2-1 on the road against New England, lost 1-0 at home against NYCFC. They did get a 2-1 win against FC Dallas, but that's the only win that they got in the last 5 games, because then they drew 1-1 against the Galaxy, and then lost 3-1 against the Seattle Sounders. And also for the Loons, it was announced just yesterday that Adrian Heath has been extended for 2 more years, and that I think I'm probably going to do a video now to talk about kind of the Heath in and Heath out kind of situation, because I think that's been pretty much the talking point right now in the fan base, and that a lot of Minnesota fans are not happy with the 2-year extension, and rightfully so, because, you know, Adrian Heath is pretty clear that his time with the Loons is coming to an end, especially with how uninspiring he's been with the tactics and also with the way that he set up his team. You just feel like maybe this could be the end this season, but he just signed a 2-year contract, and at least, you know, unless if they decide not to fire him at the end of the season, he could be here for 2 more years, and there could be 2 more years of mediocrity. But I'll at least in that Heath in and Heath out video that I'll do in the future, we'll kind of talk about some of the good things that he has done, and maybe is one of the reasons why the front office feels like he deserved more time, and are kind of belonging in terms of the Heath in category that we'll talk about in that video. But at least for this game, you know, obviously for Miami, they definitely like to bounce back after losing in their last game, and they definitely want to bounce back not only in a big way, but also it's very important for them to do so, because, as I said, this is a very streaky team, and if they start losing game once again, they could be heading into the wrong direction. But that being said, there's also a big game for Minnesota too, because out of all these games on the road that is probably winnable, this is definitely one of them, and that if they don't get a win in this game, heck, if they don't get a point out of this game, then yeah, there's going to be more anger in terms of the fan base, and that I've already heard a lot of fans have started to cancel their season ticket because of the situation of the front office accepting mediocrity and decide to keep Heath at least for another 2 years. But yeah, this is a big game for both of these teams, and we'll see who, of course, is going to come out victorious. But now moving on, we got Austin versus FC Dallas. So we got a Copa Tijas in this matchup, and I think this is the second or third Copa Tijas that we have. I think it's the third one, because I know Austin had a Copa Tijas early this season, and then we had the Texas derby between FC Dallas and Houston earlier this season. But this is the third Copa Tijas, and in terms of the all-time meeting in this Copa Tijas, well, it hasn't been close. I mean, Dallas has won all three of the meeting, and all three of those meetings was a 2-1 win against Austin that pretty much won the first ever Copa Tijas for FC Dallas. Then they of course won 5-3 on the road against Austin before winning 2-0 against Austin FC. In fact, I probably should have had a standings in terms of the Copa Tijas standing that is going on right now. Well, I think I'll do that next time when there is going to be a Copa Tijas matchup. But I also want to mention that this game will start at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:08 p.m. local time. Austin have an 8-3-4 record, while Dallas have a 7-4-4 record. And again, this season seems like Texas teams have done much better, and this is a matchup between two Texas teams that has done very well this year. Though again, you know, when you look at the case of Austin FC, they have kind of struggled a little bit, mainly because they've been going through a tough stretch. But that goes the same with FC Dallas, who has really kind of come back down to earth, at least in these last couple of games, and losing back-to-back home games. But like I said, you know, they seem to like playing against Austin. But again, this is probably going to be the strongest Austin team that they're going to be facing. Though you can say the same thing about Austin FC too. They're going to be facing probably a much better FC Dallas team compared to last year, and that we'll see who can potentially get a big victory in this Copa Tijas, because you kind of feel like it maybe once again is going to be down to Austin or FC Dallas as one of those teams that is going to be winning the Copa Tijas this season. But now moving on, in the next match, we got RSL versus the Columbus Crew, which will start at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:08 p.m. local time. RSL have an 8-4-4 record, while Columbus have a 4-5-5 record. All-time meeting, Columbus have a 12-4-8 record over RSL, but the last 5 games, I mean, RSL is just in fuego mode right now. They've won 4 out of their last 5 games, winning 2-0 against the Quakes. They did lose 2-1 on the road against the Whitecaps, but then they won 3-0 against Houston, won 2-1 against Montreal, and then win 2-1 against Austin FC. And let's also not forget to mention the fact that I don't think they have lost at the Riot this season. Like, they have really made the Riot kind of what it is in its name, a place that is an absolute fortress, and a place that not many teams are able to come away with even a point out of that game. But for the Crew, well, you know, it also doesn't help the fact that when you're about to play against a team that don't lose a lot of games at home, and you're facing, and you're coming into the game also struggle so far this season on the road, because, you know, in the last game they drew 1-1 against Columbus. They did get a rare road win, but again, it's against their favorite team to play on the road, that is Atlanta United, winning 2-1 in that one. But after that, they lost 2-0 to LAFC, lost 2-0 against NYCFC, and then drew 2-2 against the New England Revolution. And again, you know, a lot of that when you look at the history, and also not just the history, but the form itself, it heavily favored RSL. But you never know. I mean, you know, in MLS, we have seen some surprising resort, especially from what we saw last week. But ultimately, I think RSL is going to be heavy favorites in this one, and that a lot of people can agree that they're probably is going to get the win. Though, for Columbus, it's also going to be interesting to see whether or not, if we're going to see a debut with Cucho Hernandez being in this team. I mean, he just signed with the team just a couple of days ago. We'll see whether or not if he hasn't enough fitness to basically play in this game. I mean, I'm assuming he has to, because he's only just last played with Watford just a couple of weeks ago when the Premier League season is over. So I'm assuming his fitness is going to not be as bad as a player that maybe come over from Europe and they have a long layoff. But that being said, you know, it is still a couple of weeks since he's last played, so I won't be surprised he might be even just come off the bench in this game instead of just throw right into the starting 11. But that being said, moving on into the last game on this board is the Portland Timbers versus the Colorado Rapids. The Timbers have a 3-7-6 record, while the Rapids have a 5-4-6 record. This game will start at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. The Timbers have an 11-6-10 record over the Rapids, but the last 5 games, also that 11-6-10 is the all-time record, so it's relatively close. But when you look at the last 5 games for the Timbers, they're still in that struggling form that they've been in since I've been talking about the slow start that they had. I mean, they drew 1-1 against the Galaxy, lost 2-1 on the road against Miami, lost 2-0 against the Union at home, lost 3-2 on the road against the Quakes, but they did win 3-2, or actually not 3-2, I'm sorry, but they won 7-2 against Sporting KC. Actually, let me just fix that, because again, that was the game, and that was the game where everybody thought the Timbers were back. Like this, they thought that this maybe is the beginning of them going on a great run, and yeah, ever since that 7-2 victory, they've gone 4 games without a win. Now for the Rapids, they did drew 1-1 against NYCFC, while the rare point that they got so far this season on the road. Then they did lose 3-1 at home against Nashville to end their 23-game unbeaten run at home. They did win 1-0 against Seattle, lost 2-1 against Sporting KC, and then winning 2-0 against LAFC. And again, this is a team that they don't do very well on the road, just like the Columbus Crew, but at home they have been very good, except, you know, as I mentioned, they had that 23-game unbeaten run come to an end in the hands of Nashville SC, who, ironically, the following week, Nashville SC had their own long unbeaten run at home, being snapped in the hands of Sporting KC. So, yeah, coming into this game, again, I feel like coming into this game, there's no doubt the Timbers need this win more than the Rapids. I mean, if they want to get themselves out of the funk that they're in, they need to get a big victory in this one, and we'll see whether or not if they will do so against the Rapids, who I think they'll have some confidence after getting a point against the defending champ and able to get a point against NYCFC at Yankee Stadium, which is a place that not a lot of team is able to walk out of that stadium of getting anything out of it. But either way, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of these 10 games that's going to happen on Friday and Saturday. And then I will be doing the preview of the Sunday game either after when I finish doing the review between Orlando versus FC Cincinnati. That's going to happen in just a bit. Or maybe I'll do it tomorrow, because I think during tomorrow there's going to be a gap between 4 o'clock and 4:30 my time where there's going to be no MLS game, and maybe I'll take advantage of that time to do the preview of the 3 games that's going to be happening tomorrow. But until then, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these games, and let me know in the comments below your prediction for all 10 of these games that's going to be happening on Friday and Saturday. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.